Hey everyone, we're going to be talking about the Holocaust in this video. One of the most important topics to cover, but at the same time, one of the most difficult because it really just shows just how awful humans can be at times. So the Holocaust was going on from 1933 to 1945 and throughout Europe once the Nazis came to power in Germany. And it was a slow progression, but this was going on both before and during World War II. So all the stuff we were talking about with Battle of Britain, D-Day, Battle of Berlin, the Holocaust was going on at the same time, just in other places throughout Europe. So by the end here, you should be able to, would be your words, explain what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust. So you would say, I can explain what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust. So what was the Holocaust? So the Holocaust is the murder of about 6 million Jews throughout Europe from 1933 through 1945. Now, it wasn't just Jews. There was lots of other groups that the Nazis were targeting, including the mentally disabled. So if you were born with a major mental disability, they might kill you as well. Or some people with even physical disabilities, people who couldn't walk or just thought to be unworthy to live by the Nazis. But the Jews were the major group that was killed. We have a term for this. It's called genocide. Genocide means killing lots of people. You may have heard some other words like with the end in side like that, like suicide is killing oneself. Homicide is killing a person. Genocide is considered killing lots of people. So a lot of misconceptions, or just misconceptions, a fancy way of saying a wrong idea about what it means to be Jewish anyway. A lot of people think that it means that you look a certain way, but it has nothing to do with the way you look. It just means that you follow the religion called Judaism. Or sometimes you're considered Jewish even if you don't technically follow it, but your parents or maybe your grandparents followed it. It has nothing to do with your skin, eyes, hair, or the way you dress. So it's a religious belief, just like if you consider yourself a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist. And you would know that not all Christians look the same, not all Muslims look the same, not all Buddhists look the same. I'm sure you know lots of different Christians or other religions that look very different. Now, there is sometimes some similarities if a group of people come from the same general area, but you could be any skin color, any eye color, any hair color, and still be Jewish. In fact, there's a few celebrities that you might know, and there's lots of celebrities that are Jewish. Adam Sandler, a movie star, is Jewish. Drake, the rapper, is Jewish. And Adam Levine, the singer, and he's on The Voice, is also considered Jewish. So just because, and you can tell these people don't look the same way, and that doesn't mean that they can't be considered Jewish. So how does the Holocaust happen though? There's different phases to it because things are going to start off bad, but they're going to get worse. And by the end of it, everybody involved is kind of like, oh my goodness, how'd that escalate so quickly? Why did it get so bad? So beginning of the Holocaust is a term called persecution. And to be persecuted just means you're mistreated. Usually you're persecuted because you're different. In this case, the Jews were considered different than the rest of Germans and then the rest of whatever other countries Germany took over, starting with Poland and into parts of the Soviet Union, France. Those are the places that they're going to be rounding up the people that are considered Jewish and killing them. But not right away. At first, they're just treated very differently. So a lot of them lose their jobs or their businesses are destroyed. You can see in this one, the windows are all broken because the Nazis would go around destroying the Jewish businesses. They lose their citizenship and their rights. You know how you value your rights, or you will hopefully one day, like freedom of speech or freedom of religion. The Jewish lose their rights. They're basically treated like they don't matter. And many are forced to wear a yellow star just to kind of single them out to show to everybody else, hey, this person's Jewish. They're not as important as you. So that's how it starts. Things are bad, but they're treated differently, but they're not being rounded up and killed or anything yet. So most people don't speak up because if you're Jewish, you're like, it's not my problem. I'll let them handle it. Second, a lot of Jews were moved into what were called ghettos. And I know that word probably has a very different meaning for you, but at the time, it was just considered a part of the city that was sectioned off and generally a rundown area. That's where we get the term today. So their Jews are all forced into one part of the city, meaning they're separated or segregated for the way their religion. And a lot of these places were super overcrowded. There wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough water, the shelter was hard to come by, and a lot of people did die of starvation or just being sick and not having access to medicine. But the goal of these was not necessarily to kill them, but to just keep them separated from the rest of the population. But it's going to get a little worse because our next phase of the Holocaust is probably what most people think of, the concentration camps. Now, concentration camps were originally work camps where the Jews would be sent to do work. They'd do things like they'd be taken out on work crews, like work on roads. Some of them even made parts for weapons for the German army. Even some of them made ammunition under close watch, obviously, and that kind of stuff. But they would work many times 12, 14, or more hours a day with very little food or water, because the goal was to keep them just alive enough to do work, but not to be healthy at all. Over 50% of the Jews that were sent to concentration camps died from being overworked and underfed. You could see by looking at this picture, you can see his rib cage, how skinny their legs are, and they were treated very poorly. But that wasn't as bad as the fourth part of the Holocaust, which is what are considered extermination or death camps. Now, it could be tricky because some concentration camps, especially the most famous one, as you'll see a little bit later, called Auschwitz, was kind of both, had a concentration camp and an extermination camp. So these extermination camps were camps that were specifically designed for killing the Jews as fast as possible. And most were killed by either poison gas or a firing squad. Early on in the war, early on during the Holocaust, most Jews were actually killed by a firing squad. It was later in the war where they really realized that, one, they're using ammunition killing them, and it might be more efficient if they designed places where they can poison them. So you can see this awful picture where they had just dug a huge hole in the ground and were just throwing all these bodies. It might, if it doesn't shock you, you might need to rethink about it, because every single person in here was a person with real thoughts and feelings, with their own family and people that cared about them. And toward the end of the war, they started to realize that there was going to be a lot of evidence left from these massive graves that they dug. So they started to burn the bodies at what's called a crematorium. Similar to if a loved one passes away today, their body is burned. But these were made to have lots of people burned very quickly to try to get rid of evidence. So let me show you a couple other things with this. So this is a map of Germany, and this is Poland, the countries. And you see these green places here are different places where they had concentration or work camps. Over here, the red ones are what were considered the death camps or extermination camps. And these were the places that were built specifically to kill as many Jews as fast as possible. And a lot of times these places, the Jews would get there in what were called cattle cars. Cattle cars meaning railway cars that typically took cows and other large animals from place to place. They would fit as many as they could in Jewish people into these carts as they could and take them to these camps. This is a picture of the train station at Auschwitz, the biggest, the most famous camp. And if you look here, a lot of the Jews didn't really know, and some did, but didn't want to scare everybody else, what was really going to happen to them. You always want to hold out and hope that something's going to get better. So they'd be taken to these places, and a lot of times they'd come with like these are a lot of hats, and they'd come with their luggage because they were told they're just getting taken to a camp. And they get there, and a lot of times what would happen is they actually get formed into two lines. And you don't know what either line's going to be, so you don't know if you want to jump from one to the other. But in the end, one line was going to what's called the concentration camp part, where you're going to be put to work, but you have a chance to live. And the other line was people that are going straight to their deaths. And a lot of them were killed in what's called a gas chamber, especially later in the war. And in the gas chambers, you wouldn't know that's where you're going. Most of the time, because they want to keep you calm. They don't want to freak everybody out and start running, because then they would have to shoot you and use ammunition on you. And they wanted it to be as clean and as efficient as possible. Isn't that just sad and kind of scary? But they'd take you to these rooms, and they would tell you that you're getting a shower, which honestly, if you've been in this train car for days, everybody's either is stinky, you haven't showered in a while, it probably sounds really nice. But they take you in a room, and a big door shuts behind you. And the big door shuts behind you, and you realize all of a sudden that this is not a shower. But unfortunately, the door's locked. There's no way out. And most people started to realize at that point in time what was happening. They'd drop the gas in, usually from the top, and they'd seal the room, and slowly everybody inside would start to die. And a lot of times when the Germans would go in later and to clear out the bodies, they would find that they were all stacked in like a pyramid, because the people would be trying to claw and climb on top of each other to escape the gas, because the gas would hit the ground and start rising. But in the end, it was not really going to help them. It just saved them a couple more seconds of life. This is an example of the gas came in these canisters like this that they would drop into the gas chambers. And these are some workers. They were actually Jewish people themselves that were saved from the gas chambers, but they would use them instead to clear out the gas chambers after everybody was killed. And then they would take the bodies to what's called the crematorium, where they would burn them to try to get rid of the evidence that they were killing so many people. And this is a picture of where the crematorium is, and you can see the smoke rising, and it's just creepy knowing that that's actually people that were killed. So kind of a sad topic today. I know you're going to do some reading about the Holocaust, and I want you to really think about it as you do the reading, why humans could be so awful to one another, and what we could do today to keep something like that from ever happening again.